We went more of the clinical approach, I think, for home care, but then when I would get in the treatment room, we would definitely lean on our Ayurvedic herbs to help find balance.
Welcome to the Learn Skin podcast with me, Dr. Raja.
And me, Dr. Hadar, where we discuss all things skin.
Join us as we delve into the art and science of skin health in today's episode.
Hey, Raja, can you say the thing I told you to tell them?
Of course. We are board-certified dermatologists. This podcast is meant for educational and informational purposes only and is not considered medical advice, nor does it serve as a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. All opinions shared do not express the views of Learn Health, Inc. Let's get to the good stuff.
Hey, Raja, how are you today?
Hey, Hadar. I've just been thinking about what are the different ways that we can work with all of our medical and skincare professionals. And we haven't talked a lot about the esthetician services, have we?
Absolutely. I think we touched upon it once or twice during our program over the years, but I really think it is such an important partner, and estheticians, those are. And I think that we can definitely work well together, but things can also go wrong. So I think part of the way to collaborate and the first steps is to understand what an esthetician does. I think a lot of dermatologists may be surprised. Some of us have estheticians in our practice. Some of us have a network of estheticians that we know. Some of us, maybe the majority, are completely blinded to this. And it goes to other specialties as well. But today we'll focus about estheticians. And it'll be silly to talk about this topic without having an esthetician with us, don't you think?
Yes, no doubt, especially because we have the Integrative Esthetician Certificate Program available through Learn Skin. So, of course, we have the director of that program with us, Aliesh Pierce, and she is an esthetician by training. She's also a founder of Ask Alieshs Skincare, which is a clean skincare line. Welcome to the podcast, Aliesh, and we really look forward to talking to you about how estheticians can also be integrative.
Thank you, Raja. I'm glad to be here.
So, Aliesh, let's go back for a second and tell us, why did you become an esthetician?
Oh, my goodness. Well, you know what? At the time, I was working with 3 celebrity clients. They all had, as a makeup artist, as their personal makeup artist, and they all had recurring skin issues. One of them went to this famous Beverly Hills esthetician, cleared up their skin in about 6 weeks. And I said, I want to learn how to do this. And I was hooked. I wanted to move away from just spackling on makeup and get to the core issue of these recurring skin concerns they had.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your approach to looking at skin when clients come to you. How do you analyze the skin in front of you?
As estheticians, we're taught to look at the texture, color, and secretions of the skin. I think before the pandemic, we would kind of skirt around the gloves and, get our hands into it and feel for any textural changes, looking at any pigmentation issues that might be showing up, and then also the level of secretions or the barrier, just taking a look at how oily or dry the skin is. So that's our general approach. I like to get my clients into the treatment room right away, even as we're doing the consultation, cleanse the skin, and then get them under the magnifying lamp to start to look for any textural changes or anything that might seem abnormal.
When you bring the client in, I know we are talking about skin analysis. How do you prepare the skin? What are the steps that you take in preparing the skin so that you can do your treatment? Because there is a preparatory phase, isn't there?
Yeah, that first phase, that first few steps could involve any number of ingredients, but the steps are a double cleanse. That's just, I think, an American esthetician thing. And then I like to use proteolytic enzymes to help digest that surface buildup and really open up the follicle. And at that point, maybe if it calls for it, if the skin is asking for a little more support, then I'll use a high alkaline fluid, a disincrustation solution, we call it, to again open up, soften and swell the follicle. And it kind of almost saponifies the sebum, the plugs inside, so that I can start the extraction process And then I go into the treatment phase.
What's involved in a double cleanse and what makes it American? do
Yeah.
the French or the Swedish do it differently?
It's the same, just with ketchup.
Right.
Oh God.
It's with an accent aigu at the end, right? It's the same thing. But no, I trained with an esthetician, a trainer from Germany, one from Australia, and they all have different approaches. But as a general rule, American estheticians could do this cleansing twice, to get started. We're taught that the double cleanse is important. I think it's kind of like when we shampoo our hair, we're told.
Is it the same topical that you use twice, or do you use two different treatments?
That depends.
Yeah.
Now that depends. Sometimes what I'm finding in Philadelphia in the winter is that I'll actually start with a cream-based cleanser or an oil cleanse because the skin it's so hyperkeratinized sometimes in the wintertime. So I'm like softening up the cuticle before I get into the treatment cleanser, which might be my mandelic or salicylic, just kind of prepping the area. But it really, any combination, I keep in my back bar a mandelic cleanser, a salicylic cleanser, a gentle cleanser with bisabolol. I have a hard time with that word. Bisabolol and knotgrass, calendula, really calming ingredients, and almond oil cream cleanser.
Well, actually, now that you raise this up, it brings up maybe taking a step back kind of a question. What are the different kinds of cleansers that are out there in general? Because you're obviously double cleansing, you're mixing and matching, you're choosing based on what you're seeing. Can you walk us through what are the options for cleansing? Like you said, an oil-based cleanser. I know some people have, like you mentioned, perhaps there's a certain acid in there that whether it's salicylic or mandelic, or if it's bisabolol, whatever it is, can you walk us through what are the different approaches to cleansing and how do you then pair that to the skin type?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think a lot of what we as estheticians have to sift through is the brand marketing. A lot of times in each state where, there are different requirements. So, for example, I trained in California, which has a 600-hour requirement. I'm now in Pennsylvania, and there's only a 300-hour requirement. I'm interacting with estheticians in the UK as part of my training program, and they are required to study 2 years. So in the US, we really rely on the brands to help us continue our education. And I think sometimes the science gets muddled with the marketing. So we're taught to do a double cleanse. The German trainer that I worked with, that her point of view was that it was all brand marketing, wanting us to use up more product than we need to. She didn't think a double cleanse was essential because then we go into other cleansing steps, the other exfoliating steps. But my favorite cleansers are biphase cleansers. You create your own emulsion and then it can customize the ingredients as needed. So like an oil that's activated with a phyto fluid. And that's kind of a unique cleanser. And then we have just an oil cleanse, usually a jojoba base that helps break down the surface, buildup and grime. Some estheticians might use that as their pre-cleanse to set things up before they move into their gel-based cleanser. The gel cleansers can be neutral or a lot of times will have the acid in them. So the acid's mandelic for brightening, salicylic for acneic skin, glycolic for more mature skin, but I tend to stay away from glycolic. It's not my favorite ingredient. And then you might have a cream cleanser that could have an acid in it as well, but they're typically more calming and soothing for more sensitized skin.
Thank you so much for this overview. I wanted to ask you about how you approach combining the different disciplines, because you are a big fan of integrative approaches to skin health. So are we over here. And how did this come about? Maybe also you can share a little bit of your background and training in this, and how does it go into practice? So a long question, but hopefully you can follow all these pieces of it.
Well, I'm going to go way back. For me, I think it all started when I was 19. I was already working as a makeup artist and interested in, I guess, the beauty more than wellness. But at that time, I was introduced to yoga, and it was a restorative yoga. And I started to learn about the sister science to yoga, which is Ayurveda, the 5,000 plus tradition of wellness. And fast forward years later, I became the director of education for an Ayurvedic brand that was distributed through Whole Foods, and just really began to. I already had an appreciation for Ayurveda, but I could see the practical application in my daily life. And not that I always listen to it, but I know that it's there and the wisdom is there.
Right. That's a big deal. Sorry for cutting you off, but I do think it's a big deal and a great point that you're making. And we try to reinforce it as well. Just knowing something, it doesn't mean you have to use it. It's just there in your toolbox in the back of your mind. And it's just your palate and the art of medicine and art of treatment as you approach patients, clients, the people that you want to improve. So I think it's a very good point that you're mentioning because we do collect all kinds of skills along the way. We don't necessarily have to use it every time. There's a saying, at least in my department, that the most dangerous dermatologist is the one coming back from a meeting. So, learning all new skills, wanting to try everything on that next patient. And so, I think it's a good point. So you were saying that you were describing to us how now you're going to apply it with patients.
Yeah, so that gained this great appreciation for it and was through my community, my yoga community, was able to start to integrate it into practice. And sometimes I find that Ayurvedic tenets only come up when I'm actually analyzing the skin, maybe talking to the client about lifestyle, elimination, their nutrition. And then other times I'll actually find that even after going through all the clinical procedures, maybe even laser treatments, we just want to get back to balance. And I always lean on the Ayurvedic preparations for that. I always have at my side some ashwagandha in MCT oil or turmeric or shatavari. Holy basil is probably my favorite go-to. Almost every acne client that comes through gets a little neem extract worked in somewhere into the treatment. So I'm relying on Ayurvedic herbs pretty heavily and studying our program, the IECP training. I was reintroduced to the Kansa wand, and so I've been incorporating that into my massage, especially after an ND YAG, like a rejuvenation treatment. I just want to calm and soothe everything and, ask forgiveness from the client for smacking their face over and over again for 20 minutes. So we get into that balancing, calming, soothing, hydrating, and just, hitting all those marma points in the face with the Kansa wand. So there's so many opportunities to incorporate the holistic approach.
Yeah, this is very interesting because, we work with an esthetician pretty closely, even in our practice. And just like you said, we'll do multiple laser treatments on them, whether it be, say, an NDAG sort of rejuvenation treatment. There are all these lasers now that can do that. Or whether it's like ablative therapy that we do and they kind of need some gentle healing over the next, couple months. Or whether it's, just a simple V-beam and they've got a bunch of bruising or a little bit like, erythema and they're recovering from that. So I love the fact that you're working in these other approaches along with them. One of the questions that we get a lot, and I'm curious if you have any approaches to this, is if someone has thinner skin versus thicker skin, not oily and dry, but just thin skin in Ayurveda would be known as like the Vata skin type dominated by air and ether elements versus maybe a thicker skin type where they have more of the earth elements in there, water elements. Do you approach that differently with the kind of topicals that you're using or the botanicals or maybe even the treatments that you do?
I've been threatening to write everything down in a protocol manual so that I have some standardized approach in case I bring on another esthetician, but it's really intuitive. If the skin is thinner and I would say more reactive, I might stay away from, I love lactic acid, but I might omit that, at least in our first treatment or two, and just rely on the enzymes so that I know that the barrier is intact and the skin is kind of built up over a course of 40 to 80 days before I'll introduce an acid. in Philadelphia, I'm finding a lot of my African American clients, a lot, and I won't say all because the really interesting intermingling over the centuries created some interesting phenotypes just within that one ethnic group. So, but a lot of them will have thicker dermis, and I can go right in with my lactic acid, my mandelic, something that's a large molecule that's not going to really cause inflammation, because of course then those clients with the thicker skin, more active melanocytes, we wind up with more hyperpigmentation. But I kind of, my goal is to get everyone on the same page. My goal is to get everyone, I don't know, it's like the barrier is shored up, it's built up and it's strong, and I know that I can break it down. I can help the exfoliation process along a little more aggressively over time, though.
One thing you mentioned that I thought was interesting is the idea of restoring balance, which is true for many disciplines, especially Ayurveda. Can you give us an example of a patient that maybe walked into your clinic and you looked and you said, oh my gosh, everything is out of balance here? And how did you analyze it? How did you restore it to its balance? What was your approach?
Well, I can say one client I've been working with, when they came in, there was definitely, I could see pustular acne, the hyperpigmentation resulting from that, really super resistant dermis, like really follicular. It's like embedded deep into the follicle. Our first visit, I said, I can't even get extractions going with you. We need to just refine the skin to start. So my first step was to get her on a home care regimen, because I always say 80% of the results you'll see is what you do at home. So we started with mandelic acids, cleanser, and doing some calming, soothing, built her up to retinol. But she started at that point was seeing such a great improvement at home. When she came in, I was focusing on just calming, soothing, turmeric masks and, hydrofacials, things like that, to just find balance and hydrate the skin and trying to help it find homeostasis. I also, at that time, asked her to consult with her doctor about her gut health and what I was seeing on the surface. And then we found that she had, and I can't tell you what kind of cancer, but there was a cancer. And she started chemo, and we kind of took a few steps backwards. Now she's finished treatment and I can see her skin improving again, but went back to purging and having all of these imbalances again. So we're still on this journey, but it's been about a year. Actually, we just had our skin anniversary in July. So it's just been a little over a year now. We went more of the clinical approach, I think, for home care, but then when I would get her in the treatment room, we would definitely lean on our Ayurvedic herbs to help find balance.
Wow, quite a story. Definitely noticing the imbalance led you down a path. I think it's wonderful that you were passionate about paying attention and sending her to the right doctor, finding out what was the underlying cause. This, fortunately, the case of cancer this time, but understanding what you're dealing with and understanding what you don't understand is always important. I always teach my residents that the number one thing you should learn to know is how to say, I don't know. Because the worst mistake you can do is presume you know everything and then try to fix something that you don't even know what you're fixing. And that can lead you down the wrong path, and you're just not in the right place at that time. So I think it's a sentence that's very difficult for physicians to say. It's like, something's going on here. I don't know what it is, but we need to figure this out. And to look at your patient's eye and say, I don't know, is not as easy as it sounds. So I appreciate you taking us through that example. Well, Alieshs, this has been great. Thank you for helping us to understand all of what estheticians do and how you combine the analysis of the skin into the various disciplines, in your case, a lot of Ayurvedic practice. Thank you for your time, for your expertise, and we will be hopefully seeing you at the Integrative Dermatology Symposium coming up soon.
Yeah, not only that, I just want to add that, again, another plug for the Integrative Esthetician Certificate Program. Any of you that are estheticians and thinking about how do I take a more integrative approach, we've all gone through training. Hadar and myself, we've gone through dermatology residency training. I know a lot of you that are estheticians have gone through your standard training. We also know that the integrative approach is not a typical point of education in a lot of these schools. And so we really aim to have the IECP extend that. And as you can even hear from today, Alieshs has a real passion for this area. Alieshs, do you have anything you want to add about the IECP? I think it'd be a good thing to talk about. We do have the esthetician track at the IDS too. So any of you that are interested in joining this program or coming to take part in the esthetician track, realize we do a lot of in-person as well as virtual training as part of it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the IET, the estheticians track at IDS this year. Just a chance to commune with other like-minded estheticians. We are having a panel discussion, so I'll be taking part in that. The IECP has really collected a group of really committed estheticians who have some varying degrees of experience. You know, everyone in the cohorts has their own passion for integrating holistic practices. They may have been utilizing these techniques for 20 years. Some are recent graduates or recently licensed. So we're all coming at different stages of our career, but really supporting each other on this journey. And the part that I love the most is that there is a case study at the end that really allows the participant to integrate all of these different modalities and get support from the board in understanding how to take these tools with them as they move forward.
Well, we thank you again, Alieshs. Thanks for that summary as well. And we look forward to hearing more from you in the future and see you at the IDS.
Yes, I'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode with Dr. Raja and Dr. Hadar. This podcast is brought to you by Learn Skin, leaders in integrative dermatology education. Visit learnskin.com/podcast to explore our many programs or subscribe to the podcast today and never miss an episode. Hey, have a great day and stay curious.